I find I really like to turn green wood. What's nice about turning green wood is that it cuts really easily, so you can turn it really quickly. In that you can make a lot of progress really quickly with it. So it's a lot of fun. But in doing that and in making that quick progress, you'd make a lot of chips. I get chips everywhere. And they build up, and even just one turning will make quite a storm of chips everywhere around the lathe, which isn't really that big of a deal. And cleaning them up from the floor is really easy and straightforward. I can just sweep them up. But where it's a little bit of a pain is where they don't go on the floor and they get stuck in everything. And I have a cabinet next to the lathe that I made years and years ago to go in the house, but there wasn't a good place for it in the new house. So I have it out here next to the lathe, and it gets covered in chips. And all the little tools and little instruments that I have get covered in chips. So to clean it out, I usually have to get the vacuum out and kind of carefully go around and vacuum up all the chips around all the little instruments and little tools and pieces. So what I'd like to do is to try and solve this problem, at least at the cabinet, and to use the space of the cabinet a little bit better. So what I'd like to do at the cabinet, I think, is to make 3 doors for the bigger spaces and then 3 drawers for the smaller spaces. And I think that'll help keep the chips out of all the stuff that's in here. And I need to fix a piece of trim, and I'd like to make a shelf in 1 or 2 of these, so I can measure how big I need now. So it's 21 inches, and the width is 60. So that's what we'll do. So I have a piece of Russian birch, and it's about 3/4 of an inch thick. I think it's 18 millimeter thick. From this I can cut out the doors and the drawer faces. Now for the doors, I'd like to use the hidden European hinges. And with a little measuring and a little math, I figured that I need to drill the main hole for the hinge 3 millimeters from the edge of the door. And I'm kind of using metric. The hole that the hinge needs to be a 35 millimeter in diameter hole. So I have a bit that drills that size hole. It needs to be 11 millimeters deep. And this makes a lot of chips too. So you can see the hinge fits into that hole in the door. And I can make it square to the door and then clamp one side in place. And then put the 2 screws in that hold the hinge on the door. And then on the cabinet, a little foot gets attached. Then the piece of the hinge that attaches to the door snaps into that foot. And that's how the door works. Once I had the hinges on and adjusted right, I could then cut the door to length, and it would then fit right within the opening of the shelf. Then I moved on to fixing the little piece of trim that was missing on the cabinet. And I had done the trim on this in maple, and I found a little scrap piece of maple I could use for this. So I cut a piece to the right size and length and attached that. I wanted to add a shelf, so I had an old shelf that used to hold a computer monitor back before we had flat screens, so it was a big, deep shelf, and I thought I could cut that down to make a shelf for the cabinet here. So I used some more of that maple to make 2 supports on each side for the shelf. Then the last thing to do with the maple is I wanted to make some stops for the doors so that the doors would have something to stop against when they closed. Then the next thing to make was the drawers. And I had some roughly 1/2 inch Russian birch and some scrap pieces I'd used for a project at some point in the past. I don't even remember what these were from. They made good pieces for the sides. So I wanted to make a little joint that would help hold the front and back on a little better when you pull on the drawer. So I made a tongue and groove for that. I did the groove on the table saw and then the tongue on the radial arm saw. This is how the pieces go together. And then it was just a matter of gluing the pieces together. and clamping. Part of the process was to flip the piece over, and then I could glue the bottom in place. I figured since the drawer was going to sit on the bottom of the little shelf, the bottom didn't need to be as attached as well as a drawer would normally be. Then once the glue was dry, I could then flush trim the edge of that. Then I cut the faces for the drawers and got them sized perfectly. For attaching the faces to the drawers, I shimmed the face up just a little bit. You can see the shim on the bottom of the face there. And I attached the face from the front with 2 screws. And then once that was done, I could pull the drawer out. And it was time to make some pulls for the drawers and the doors. The thought I had in the design for this was something that chips wouldn't get stuck on. The little long curls of the lathe oftentimes get wrapped around little things that stick out. So I cut down a 4x4 piece of hardwood, and I cut a slanted top and then a little space for your fingers to go as you grasp the pull. Once I had that section, I could then cut pieces from that. So back to the drawer, I can pull the drawer out and then clamp the face to the drawer and then pull the 2 screws out and then attach the pull from the inside with 2 screws through those same 2 holes. And then the face and the drawer are together and in the right spot. So now I can put things back into the cabinet. Well, that works a lot better. Thanks for watching.